Welcome back, everybody. My name's Randy. Of course, you are watching the 5.5 Garage. And today is another video in the Turbo Miata build series. I need to get cracking on putting the parts back on this engine so I can try to get this thing started. So in today's video, we will be addressing the alternator. I am not going to use the stock Miata alternator. I am going to go with something a little bit different. I will explain that in a minute. As well, I will be installing another starter. I will not be using the NA starter. Are you guys detecting a theme here for today's video? As I said, those two things we'll be working on today. I'm going to cut this a little bit short so I can get to the work because there is a lot of it. So let's get started. To give you guys a rundown of what's about to happen. This is my stock alternator from my Miata. This is a 70 amp alternator. And one of the reasons why I want to replace it is because when I had it in the car with my headlights on, the blower motor going, listening to the radio, if you came to a stop, the headlights would dim. With all of the things I will be adding to this car as this build series goes along, I feel like this is not going to be able to keep up. So one of the things I did was find myself an alternator from an FD RX-7. And the reason why is, one, this is a 100 amp alternator, so it should have no issues keeping up. And number two, it is very close to the stock dimensions of the Miata alternator that it will be replacing, even down to the 2-wire plug, plugs right in just like it was factory. Now, the only issue that you will run into, and what I ran into, is it bolts in, but you don't have a lot of range for adjustability, like for instance when you go to put on your water pump belt. And that's because when you have it hooked up, it hits here and it hits here, and that keeps you from being able to tilt it all the way close to the motor block in order to be able to get your belt on. So what I'm going to be working on today is grinding this down and then grinding this down as well to give myself that range of adjustability. So I've already test fitted this, and those are going to be the two areas I need to work on. As well, you will have to get a longer lower alternator bolt. The stock one just isn't long enough, but thanks to Adam at Rev Limiter on his blog, where I got the idea to do this modification, he said that the longer bolt for the power steering installation will work, and that is exactly what I have right here. It threads up fine, so that makes it so much easier. And somewhere down in here I will have I'll post what size bolts you actually need in case you don't have one of these power steering bolts. But other than that, I am going to break out my Dremel and put on a cutting bit and start test fitting this and trimming this down in order to get this to fit up properly. All right, so I am going to use my rotary tool, and this rotary tool has a carbide cutting bit on it to make this easier. I also got some safety goggles and a mask just because there's going to be metal bits flying all over the place. I don't want to breathe any of this stuff in, but let's get to it. This now fits up, and what I had to do was I had to trim this back in order to clear the oil pump down by where the lower bolt goes. And right here, you're going to have to kind of notch this a little bit to clear one of the areas on the upper part of the oil pump. But this now goes completely over to the block, and what it hits now is this bolt right here, and I'm not going to really be too worried about that. But for the most part, this is ready to be mounted up. Now, as I was mocking it up while I was doing my cuts, I noticed I probably am going to have to get a longer belt. The stock belt that you use for the water pump is this one, and this is a Gates belt, and it's a K040347. I am going to see if I can find a K040350, and that should be plenty enough in order to be able to be, one, put on over the crank and the water pump pulley and still give me some room for adjustability. With the 4-7 bolt, it is very tight and there is no room whatsoever to adjust it, and the alternator is pretty much wedged up close to the engine block. So I'm gonna see if I can find a slightly longer belt, and then this should be good to go. Next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fit this up to the block so you guys can see how it looks. All right, so as you can see, the alternator is now on the car. It is bolted in, everything's tightened down. Now this is a 347 belt. It's the belt I had previously. It's still in pretty good condition, so I'm gonna run it for right now. But trying to get a brand new belt, even with the alternator pushed all the way, it's still a bit of a tight fit. So I recommend, if you're going to do this and you're going to use a new belt, go ahead and get a slightly larger belt. Like a K040350 should work fine. But like I said, everything's in, it's tightened down now. So the next step is to go ahead and wire it into the harness. And one of the reasons why I wanted to go with this RX-7 alternator is, as you can see, this is the 2-wire plug, and it snaps in like stock. So you're good to go there. And then all you have to do is take this, oops, I'm turning it the wrong way. And there's not even a lot of work that you have to do here either, other than me dropping the bolt, but you can even fit that on like stock. All right. Okay, so now that we got the alternator on the car, the next thing we need to start talking about is the starter. And this is my original NA starter. And this is a 16-pound behemoth. And I will not be using this because I decided to get my hands on this 4-pound MB starter, which has a higher torque rating than this old NA starter. And so this one's fairly straightforward. The only thing you need to understand is there is going to be a bolt that you're not going to use because it's not going to line up quite correctly. So it's just going to be this bolt on the top and then this one on the bottom. Bolts up. Wiring wise, everything's pretty straightforward. It's just like doing the NA starter. So this is pretty much going to be a remove and replace, and probably one of the easiest things I've done on this build so far. But I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the car. It looks like I can now start concentrating on how I'm going to run my fuel lines so that I can then put the intake manifold back onto the side of the car so I can get started on the turbo install. Now, big thanks to Adam at Rev Limiter Gauges. He was the one that I got the idea to use the FD alternator, because on his site, he wrote a blog post outlining different alternators that will work with the Miata engine with a little bit of work. And of those choices, the FD alternator is by far the easier one to work with. Now, you will need a Dremel or some kind of rotary tool in order to be able to kind of grind those areas down so you can get it to fit. But the upside is the 2-wire clip just went right in, so there was no rewiring needed to be done. Everything lines up. The belt might be an issue, but you can get a slightly longer belt and make everything work. As well as the MB starter, that is about as easy as it gets. It's a simple remove and replace, and you get more starting torque to turn the engine over, which is very beneficial when you raise the compression or you have a boosted motor. All of these are relatively simple things that you could do even to a stock Miata that will help increase its performance and its reliability, and it's just ease of day-to-day use. With all that said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure that you like the video and you are subscribed to the channel. Liking the video helps me in the various algorithms that exist out there in cyberspace so that people can find my content, as well You want to know when these videos come out, right? That's why you need to make sure that you're subscribed. And there are a lot of videos yet to come. I still need to address the fuel system setup. I'm adding in an extra fuel sensor, so that'll be something interesting. You guys are not going to miss that. As well, I need to put the intake manifold back on here, so then I can start on the other side with the turbo install. And I know you all are waiting for that. I'm getting a lot of questions about it. We're getting to it, I promise. So now that I am tired and almost out of breath, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I hope you all are out there enjoying yourselves, staying safe, and I will see you guys on the next one.